Jake Morrison stared at the view screen with wide eyes. His hands gripped the sides of his captain's chair, so hard his knuckles turned white. The planet Kepler 442b hung in space below them, but something was very wrong. Huge alien ships surrounded, the world like hungry wolves around a wounded deer. "Amy, turn down the engines to minimum power," Jake whispered to his engineer. "We don't want them to see us." Amy Rodriguez worked fast at her control panel. The Lucky Strike was just a small trading ship, not built for war. They had come to Kepler 442b to sell food supplies and medicine to the colonists. Instead, they found 12 massive alien warships preparing to attack. "Captain, those ships are huge," said Pete Collins from the navigation station. His voice shook with fear. "Each one is 10 times bigger than our ship." Jake had been a soldier once, fighting for Earth's Defense Force. He knew what those alien ships could do. The crystalline creatures inside them called themselves Valtharians. They had been moving through the galaxy for 3 years, taking over planets and enslaving people. "Lisa, are you getting readings from the planet?" Jake asked the ship's medic. Lisa. Park checked her medical scanners. "I'm reading millions of life signs down there, Captain, but they're all scared. Really scared." The Valtharian ships moved into attack position. Jake watched in horror as bright beams of energy shot down from the alien vessels. The beams hit the planet's surface like hammers of light. Cities that had stood for hundreds of years turned to dust in seconds. "Oh no," Amy whispered. "They're killing everyone." Jake wanted to help, but he knew his small ship could not fight 12 alien warships. The Lucky Strike had only basic shields and no real weapons. They would be destroyed in minutes if they tried to interfere. The attack went on for hours. The Valtharian ships took turns firing their terrible weapons. Mountains melted. Oceans boiled. The green and blue planet slowly turned gray and black with smoke and ash. "Captain, I'm recording everything," Pete said quietly. "Someone needs to see what happened here." Jake nodded. The galaxy needed to know about this massacre. 2 billion people lived on Kepler 442b. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong except live on a planet the aliens wanted. After the bombing stopped, smaller Valtharian ships flew down to the planet's surface. Through their telescopes, the crew of the Lucky Strike watched as the aliens rounded up the survivors. Millions of people were forced into camps surrounded by energy fences. "They're making them into slaves," Lisa said with tears in her eyes. The ones who lived through the attack. The aliens brought huge machines down from their ships. The machines began digging into the planet's crust, pulling out rare metals and crystals. Kepler 442b had some of the richest mineral deposits in the galaxy. That was why the Valtharians wanted it. Jake thought about his own home on Earth. He had a sister there, and 2 young nephews. If the aliens continued their path through the galaxy, Earth might be next. "Amy, how much fuel do we have?" he asked. "Enough to get to the Proxima station," she replied, "but just barely." "Good. We need to warn people about what we saw here." As the Lucky Strike prepared to leave, one of the Valtharian ships turned toward them. Jake's heart stopped. Had they been spotted? "All power off now," he ordered. The ship went dark. They drifted in space like a piece of metal junk. The alien ship scanned the area with bright blue beams. The beams passed over the Lucky Strike. Twice. Jake held his breath. If the aliens found them, they would all die. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the Valtharian ship turned away and went back to watching the planet. "Start the engines, but keep them quiet," Jake whispered. The Lucky Strike slowly moved away from Kepler 442b. Jake took one last look at the dying world. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires. The beautiful blue oceans were now the color of mud. Cities, that once held millions of people were empty ruins. I promise you, Jake said to himself, someone will pay for this. The journey to Proxima Station took 2 days. Jake and his crew said very little during the trip. They were all thinking about what they had seen. 2 billion innocent people murdered in a single day. When they finally reached the station, Jake immediately went to the communication center. He sent messages to Earth, to the colony worlds, and to anyone who would listen. He included the recordings Pete had made of the attack. The Valtharians are coming, he said in his message. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets. They turn survivors into slaves. We need to prepare, or we'll end up like Kepler 442b. But Jake wondered if anyone would listen. The Valtharian ships were so powerful, and there were so many of them. How could anyone stop creatures who could destroy worlds? He thought about his time as a soldier. He remembered his training. Sometimes a small force can defeat a larger one if they're smart and brave enough. But the aliens had technology far beyond anything humans possessed. As Jake sat in the station's bar later that night, he overheard other spacers talking. The Valtharians had hit 3 more worlds in the past month. Each time, the same pattern: orbital bombardment, enslavement of survivors, and strip mining of resources. They're like a disease, one trader said. They consume everything and leave nothing behind. Jake finished his drink and walked back to his ship. Amy, Pete, and Lisa were waiting for him in the crew quarters. What do we do now, Captain? Amy asked. Jake looked at his loyal crew. They had been through a lot together, trading goods across the galaxy for 5 years. They trusted him to keep them safe. We head for Earth, he said. Our people need to know what's coming. The Lucky Strike left Proxima Station the next morning. As they traveled through space toward Earth, Jake thought about the recordings they carried. The galaxy was about to change forever. The Valtharians seemed unstoppable, but Jake remembered something his old commander used to say: every enemy has a weakness. You just have to find it. He hoped someone would find the Valtharians' weakness before it was too late. The galaxy was running out of time. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room high above Earth. Through the thick windows, she could see her home planet spinning slowly in space. It looked peaceful and beautiful, but Kate knew that peace would not last much longer. The holographic display in the center of the room showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the worlds the Valtharians had conquered. There were 43 red dots now, and more appeared every week. Show me the latest reports, Kate said to her aide, Lieutenant Commander Tony Blake. Tony pressed a button, and new information appeared on the display. 17 human colonies have gone silent in the past month, Admiral. We've lost contact with over 50 million people. Kate closed her eyes for a moment. Each red dot represented billions of lives lost or enslaved. The Valtharians moved through space like a plague, taking everything and leaving nothing behind. What about the refugee ships? She asked. 200 vessels reached Earth last week, Tony replied. They all tell the same story. The aliens attack without warning, destroy the cities, and take the survivors as slaves. Kate walked to another display that showed Earth's defenses. It was not a pretty sight. Earth had 12 old cruisers, 6 orbital defense platforms, and 1 experimental warship that had never been tested in real combat. The experimental ship was called the USS Defiance. It was humanity's newest and most advanced warship, built with technology that pushed the limits of human science. But it was still just 1 ship against an alien fleet that grew larger every day. Where is Captain Hayes? Kate asked. On the Defiance, running combat drills with his crew. Kate nodded. Ryan Hayes was young for a ship captain, only 32 years old. But the war had killed many experienced officers, and Hayes had shown real skill in the few battles he had fought. More importantly, he understood the Defiance better than anyone else. Kate walked to the communication station and opened a channel to the Defiance. "Captain Hayes, this is Admiral Sullivan. Please report to the war room immediately." "On my way, Admiral," came Hayes' voice through the speaker. While she waited, Kate studied the intelligence reports about the Valfarian fleet the aliens had. 42 warships now, each one capable of destroying a planet. Their main fleet was still 3 days away from Earth, but an advance force of 8 ships had already entered the outer solar system. Captain Hayes arrived 20 minutes later. He was tall and thin, with brown hair and serious blue eyes. He wore the black uniform of the Earth Defense Force, with the captain's stars on his collar. "Admiral," he said with a salute. "Sit down, Ryan," Kate said. "We need to talk about your ship." Hayes took a seat at the conference table. "The Defiance is ready for combat, Admiral. My crew has been training non-stop for the past month." "Tell me about your people," Kate said. "They're good," Hayes replied. "Danny Park is the best weapons officer I've ever worked with. He can hit a target the size of a dinner plate from 1,000 kilometers away. Maria Santos knows the ship's engines better than the people who built them. And Alex Turner has been my first officer for 2 years. I trust him with my life." Kate pulled up the Defiance's technical specifications on the display. The ship was impressive. Adaptive armor that could change its properties based on the type of attack, quantum torpedoes that could punch through any known shield, and an artificial intelligence called Oracle that could process tactical information faster than any human. "What about Oracle?" Kate asked. "The AI is amazing," Hayes said. "It can run 1,000 battle simulations in the time it takes me to blink, but it's never been tested in real combat." Kate stood up and walked to the window. She could see other ships moving around Earth's orbital shipyards. Workers were trying to repair damaged vessels and build new weapons, but everyone knew it would not be enough. "Ryan, I'm going to be honest with you," she said. "Our conventional forces cannot stop the Valfarian fleet. When they get here, Earth will fall unless we find a different way to fight them." Hayes was quiet for a moment. "What are you thinking, Admiral?" "I'm thinking that conventional tactics won't work against them. They have better weapons, stronger shields, and more ships. We need to do something they won't expect." Kate turned back to Hayes and looked him in the eyes. "I want you to take the Defiance out on a special mission. Not to defend Earth directly, but to hit the enemy where they don't expect it." "What kind of mission?" Hayes asked. Before Kate could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Tony Blake ran to his console and checked the incoming reports. "Admiral, we have 8 Valfarian ships approaching Jupiter," he announced. "They'll reach our outer defense line in 6 hours. Kate felt her heart sink. The aliens were ahead of schedule. She had hoped for more time to prepare. "All ships to battle stations," she ordered. "Launch all available fighters. Prepare the orbital platforms for combat." Hayes stood up quickly. "Admiral, I should get back to my ship." "Wait," Kate said. "I want you to listen to the first battle. Study how the aliens fight. Learn their tactics. You and the Defiance may be Earth's last hope." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Earth's defenders moved into position near Jupiter's moons. The old cruisers Marathon and Liberty led the charge, supported by 50 fighter craft and 3 orbital weapons platforms. Kate watched the battle from the war room. At first, it seemed like the human forces might have a chance. The cruisers. Missiles found their targets, and several Valfarian ships took damage. But then the aliens showed their true power. Energy beams that could melt through a ship's hull in seconds. Shields that absorbed human weapons like they were toys. Within an hour, both human cruisers were destroyed. 47 fighters were lost. 2 orbital platforms were reduced to scrap metal. Damn, Hayes whispered as he watched the display. Their weapons are incredible. Kate felt sick to her stomach. In one battle, she had lost a third of Earth's defense force. The surviving ships retreated toward Mars, where they would try to make another stand. This is how every battle has gone, she told Hayes. The aliens are just too strong for conventional warfare. Hayes stared at the tactical display, studying the enemy ship's movements. Admiral, I noticed something during the battle. The Valtharian ships seemed to slow down every few hours, like they were recharging their power systems. Kate looked at the battle recordings. Hayes was right. Several times during the fight, the alien ships had reduced their speed and dimmed their weapons. Oracle might be able to analyze their power patterns, Hayes said. If we can figure out when they're vulnerable, we might have a chance. Kate nodded. Do it. Take the Defiance and study the enemy. Find their weakness. Hayes saluted and turned to leave. As he reached the door, Kate called out to him. Ryan, I know what I'm asking of you. One ship against their entire fleet. If you can't find a way to stop them, Earth will fall. Hayes looked back at her with determination in his eyes. We'll find a way, Admiral. Somehow, we'll find a way. As Hayes left for his ship, Kate turned back to the window. Earth looked so small and fragile in the darkness of space. Soon, 42 alien warships would arrive to destroy everything she had ever loved. But maybe, just maybe, one experimental human warship could find a way to save them all. Captain Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the battle reports from Mars. The human defense line was crumbling. Another 2 cruisers had been destroyed, and the Valtharian advance fleet was pushing closer to Earth. Captain, Admiral Sullivan is calling for all ships to fall back to Earth's orbit, reported Alex Turner, his first officer. Alex was a steady man in his 40s, with gray hair and calm eyes that never showed fear. Hayes looked at the tactical display. The main Valtharian fleet would reach Earth in less than 48 hours. When they arrived, humanity's home world would face 42 massive warships with weapons that could turn continents to ash. Sir. What are your orders? Asked Danny Park from the weapons station. Danny was young, maybe 25, but he could handle the ship's quantum torpedoes better than anyone. Hayes had ever seen. Hayes made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed in peacetime. We're not falling back, he said quietly. Bridge crew turned to stare at him. Alex Turner stepped closer to the captain's chair. Sir, Admiral Sullivan ordered all ships to defend Earth, Alex said carefully. The Admiral ordered all ships to defend Earth, Hayes replied. But she didn't. Say how we should do it. Hayes walked to the main display and pulled up a star map showing the Valtharian fleet's position. The alien ships were moving toward Earth in a tight formation, confident that nothing could stop them. Oracle, display the enemy fleet analysis. Hayes commanded. The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately. Oracle's voice was calm and electronic, but somehow almost human. Analysis complete, Captain. The Valtharian fleet consists of 42 vessels. The command ship is approximately 20% larger than the others and appears to coordinate all fleet movements. Show me their power consumption patterns. Hayes said. New data appeared on the screen. Hayes had been right about the aliens. Power systems. Every 6 hours, each ship reduced its speed and dimmed its weapons while recharging its energy cores. How long does the recharge cycle last? Hayes asked. Approximately 14 minutes, Captain, Oracle replied. During this time, the ship's shields operate at 60% efficiency, and their weapons cannot fire. Hayes felt his heart racing. This was it. This was the weakness they needed. Danny, how many quantum torpedoes do we have? He asked. 12, Captain, Danny replied. Each one can punch through heavy armor, but we'd need direct hits on vital systems to take down ships that big. Hayes turned to face his crew. He could see confusion and worry on their faces. They knew something unusual was happening. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "We're going to attack the main Valfarian fleet." The bridge went completely silent. Alex Turner was the first to speak. "Captain, that's suicide. One ship against 42? We wouldn't last 5 minutes." "Not if we fight them the way they expect," Hayes replied. "But we're not going to fight fair." Hayes explained his plan. The Defiance would use its experimental jump drive to appear right in the middle of the enemy fleet during their recharge cycle. It would target the command ship and as many others as possible, then jump away before the aliens could respond. "It's crazy enough that it might work," Danny said slowly. "But we'd only get one chance." "One chance is all we need," Hayes replied. "Oracle, can you calculate the exact timing for the enemy recharge cycle?" "Affirmative, Captain. The next fleet-wide recharge will begin in 37 hours and 42 minutes. Hayes looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through smaller battles against pirates and raiders. Now he was asking them to risk everything on an insane plan to save Earth. "I won't order anyone to do this," he said. "If you want to follow Admiral Sullivan's orders and defend Earth directly, I'll understand. But I believe this is our only real chance to stop the aliens." Maria Santos spoke up from the engineering station. She was a small woman with dark hair and oil-stained hands, but she knew the Defiance better than anyone. "Captain, the jump drive has never been tested at close range to enemy ships. The gravitational effects could tear us apart. Can you make it work?" Hayes asked. Maria thought for a moment. "Maybe. I'd need to recalibrate the entire system and boost power to the stabilizers. It would be dangerous, but possible." "Do it," Hayes ordered. Over the next day, the crew of the Defiance worked frantically to prepare for their impossible mission. Maria and her engineering team modified the jump drive to handle multiple short-range jumps. Danny programmed the torpedo targeting systems for maximum accuracy. Alex coordinated with Oracle to plan their attack route. Meanwhile, Earth's remaining defenders took positions around the planet. Admiral Sullivan had 8 ships left, plus the orbital defense platforms. It would not be enough when the main alien fleet arrived. Hayes received several messages from Admiral Sullivan, ordering him to return to Earth immediately. He ignored them all. If his plan failed, it would not matter where the Defiance was when the aliens arrived. "Captain, incoming message from Earth," Alex reported. "It's Admiral Sullivan, priority channel." Hayes nodded. "Put her through." "Admiral." Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired and worried, but her voice was firm. "Captain Hayes, you are ordered to return to Earth orbit immediately. We need every ship for the defense of our home world." "Admiral, with respect." "The defense of Earth is exactly what I'm doing," Hayes replied. "But not the way you expect." Sullivan stared at him for a moment. "What are you planning, Ryan?" Hayes explained his plan to attack the alien fleet during their recharge cycle. As he talked, he could see the Admiral's expression change from anger to surprise to something that might have been hope. "It's completely insane," Sullivan said when he finished. "Yes, ma'am, it is," Hayes agreed. "But conventional tactics won't work against them. You've seen the battle reports. They're too strong, too advanced. We need to do something they won't expect." Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. "If you fail, Earth falls. You know that, don't you?" "If we don't try, Earth falls anyway," Hayes replied. "This way, we at least have a chance." Finally, Sullivan nodded. "Good luck, Captain. Bring our people home." The transmission ended, and Hayes turned back to his crew. They had 18 hours before the attack. All hands, this is the captain. Hayes announced over the ship's communication system. Tomorrow, we're going to do something that's never been done before. We're going to take on an entire alien fleet with one ship. I know it sounds impossible, but I believe in this crew, and I believe in this ship. We're going to show these aliens that humans don't give up, no matter what the odds. As the Defiance moved toward its attack position, Hayes thought about his home on Earth. He had grown up in a small town in Ohio where his parents still lived. If the mission failed, they would probably die when the aliens attacked Earth. But Hayes pushed those thoughts away. He had a job to do, and the fate of humanity depended on doing it right. The next morning, Oracle announced that the enemy fleet was beginning its recharge cycle. Hayes sat in his captain's chair and looked around the bridge at his crew. They were ready. This is it, he said quietly. Maria, engage the jump drive. The Defiance disappeared from normal space and reappeared in the heart of the Valtharian fleet, surrounded by 42 alien warships that had never expected to see a human vessel in their midst. The USS Defiance appeared in the middle of the Valtharian fleet like a ghost materializing from nowhere. Captain Hayes felt his stomach drop as he saw the enormous alien ships surrounding them. Each one was the size of a small city, their crystal, hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. All stop, Hayes ordered quietly. Maintain radio silence. The ship drifted forward, using only momentum to carry them closer to their targets. Around them, the alien vessels hung motionless in space, their weapons dark and their shields operating at reduced power. The recharge cycle had begun exactly as Oracle predicted. Danny, target the command ship, Hayes whispered. Maria, prepare for emergency jump. Danny Park's hands moved over his controls with practiced precision. The quantum torpedoes were armed and ready. On his targeting display, he could see the weak points Oracle had identified on the alien command vessel. Target acquired, Captain, Danny reported softly. I have a clean shot at their power core. Hayes watched the countdown timer on his display. They had 12 minutes before the alien ships finished recharging. 12 minutes to do as much damage as possible and escape before the entire fleet opened fire on them. Fire, Hayes commanded. 4 quantum torpedoes launched from the Defiance at the same moment. They streaked through space like bolts of lightning, covering the distance to the command ship in seconds. The torpedoes punched through the alien vessels, weakened shields, and exploded. Deep inside its hull. The command ship erupted in a chain of explosions that lit up the darkness like a new star. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as power conduits overloaded and weapon systems detonated. Within 30 seconds, the massive vessel broke apart, scattering debris across thousands of kilometers. Jump now, Hayes shouted. Maria Santos engaged the experimental jump drive. The Defiance vanished from its position and reappeared 2,000 kilometers away, directly behind a group of 3 alien dreadnoughts. Fire all remaining torpedoes. Hayes ordered. Danny launched the ship's remaining 8 quantum torpedoes. In a devastating mirage, the weapons found their marks on 2 of the alien ships, tearing through their hulls and destroying their power cores. One ship exploded immediately, while the second began to drift, its systems failing, but the 3rd alien ship was already beginning to turn toward them. Its recharge cycle was complete, and its weapons were coming online. Incoming fire. Alex, Turner shouted from his station. A beam of pure energy lanced through space where the Defiance had been a moment before. Maria had jumped the ship again, but this time something went wrong. Alarms began ringing throughout the ship as the jump drive overloaded. Jump drive is offline, Maria reported. The gravitational stress from jumping so close to large ships has damaged the system. I need at least an hour to repair it. Hayes felt his heart sink. They were trapped in the middle of the alien fleet with no way to escape. Around them, the Valtharian ships were waking up from their recharge cycle like sleeping giants coming to life. "All ships, attack the human vessel," came a voice over the alien communication channels. Oracle was translating their language in real time. Enemy fighters began launching from the alien ships. Hundreds of small craft swarmed toward the Defiance like angry insects. Their weapons were smaller than the main ships, but there were so many of them. "Danny, target the fighters," Hayes ordered. "Use everything we have." The ship's defensive weapons came online. Laser cannons and particle beams reached out to swat the enemy fighters from space. Danny was incredibly accurate, destroying 2 or 3 fighters with each shot. But for every fighter they destroyed, 2 more took its place. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Alex reported. "Emergency teams are responding." The ship shuddered as enemy fire found its mark. The Defiance was tough, but it was not designed to fight an entire fleet alone. More alarms began ringing as systems throughout the ship took damage. "Captain, we've lost navigation," reported the officer who had replaced Pete Collins. "And the communication array is damaged." Hayes looked around the bridge. His crew was working frantically to keep the ship functioning, but they were running out of options. They had accomplished their mission by destroying the enemy command ship and 2 dreadnoughts, but now they were going to pay the price. "Maria, how long until the jump drive is repaired?" he asked. 40 minutes at least," she replied. "Maybe longer if we keep taking damage." 40 minutes was a lifetime in space combat. Hayes knew they would not survive that long against the entire alien fleet. "Captain, I have an idea," Oracle announced, "but it is extremely dangerous." "Tell." Hayes said. "We could overload the ship's main reactor and use it as a weapon," the AI explained. "If we ram the largest remaining enemy ship at full speed, the explosion would destroy both vessels." Hayes closed his eyes for a moment. Oracle was suggesting they turn the Defiance into a suicide weapon. It would mean the death of everyone on board, but it might save Earth. "Sir, there has to be another way," Alex said quietly. "Maria could the crew escape in the life pods before we ran the enemy ship?" Hayes asked. "Some of them," Maria replied, "but not all. And the life pods don't have long-range communication. No one would know what happened here." Hayes thought about the 2 billion people who had died at Kepler 442b. He thought about his parents back on Earth, and all the other innocent people. Who would die if the alien fleet reached Earth? "Oracle, can you broadcast a message to the entire galaxy?" he asked. "Yes, Captain. I can send a transmission on all known frequencies." Hayes stood up from his captain's chair and walked to the center of the bridge. His crew looked at him with respect and trust, even though they all knew they were probably going to die. "Record this message," Hayes told Oracle. "Send it to every human colony, every alien world, and every species in the galaxy." Hayes looked directly into the recording device. "My name is Captain Ryan Hayes of the Earthship Defiance. We are currently surrounded by the Valtharian fleet that has been terrorizing the galaxy for 3 years. We have destroyed their command ship and 2 dreadnoughts, but we are about to be destroyed ourselves." He paused, thinking about what he wanted to say to the galaxy. The Valtharians are not invincible. They can be hurt, and they can be defeated. But it takes courage to stand up to them. It takes people who are willing to fight even when the odds are impossible. Another enemy beam struck the ship, and the lights flickered on the bridge. "We are going to ram the enemy flagship in 60 seconds, Hayes continued. "We're going to show them that humans don't surrender, and we don't give up. We hope our sacrifice will inspire others to fight back against these monsters." Hayes looked around at his crew one last time. "It has been an honor to serve with all of you. Oracle, begin the countdown," he ordered. full speed ahead. The Defiance turned toward the largest Valtharian ship and began its final approach. Enemy fire lit up space around them, but nothing could stop them now. They were committed to their course. 30 seconds to impact, Oracle announced. Hayes sat back down in his captain's chair and gripped the armrests. This was it. This was how the story would end. But sometimes, even in the darkest moments, hope can come from unexpected places. The USS Defiance struck the Valtharian flagship at tremendous speed. The impact created a flash of light that could be seen from 3 solar systems away. Both ships disappeared in a massive explosion as the human vessel's overloaded reactor detonated. The explosion was so powerful that it damaged 12 other alien ships nearby. Chunks of metal and crystal flew through space like deadly rain. A perfectly organized Valtharian fleet suddenly found itself in chaos. "The command ship is gone," shouted one alien officer over their communication channels. Oracle's final transmission was translating everything in real time, broadcasting it across the galaxy. "Who is in command now?" asked another voice. "I don't." "No," came the reply. "The Supreme Commander was on that ship." Without their leader and their command vessel, the Valtharian fleet fell apart. The aliens had always fought as a single unit, following orders from their Supreme Commander. Now that he was dead, they did not know what to do. Some ships tried to continue toward Earth. Others stopped to help the damaged vessels. A few even began to retreat. For the first time in 3 years, the mighty Valtharian fleet was confused and disorganized. 3 days later, a rescue ship found Captain Hayes floating in space inside an escape pod. He was unconscious and badly injured, but alive. The pod's life support systems had kept him breathing during the explosion. "How did he survive?" asked the rescue team leader. "The blast threw his pod clear of the explosion," explained the ships. "Doctor, he has several broken bones and radiation poisoning, but he'll live." Alex Turner was found in another escape pod, along with 6 other crew members. Maria Santos had managed to get 15 people into the life pods before the ship exploded. In total, 22 members of the Defiance crew survived the battle, but their sacrifice had changed everything. Oracle's final transmission reached every corner of the galaxy within days. The recording showed humans fighting against impossible odds, destroying alien ships, and refusing to surrender even when facing certain death. On the planet Kepler 442b, the enslaved survivors heard the message. For the first time in months, they felt hope. If one human ship could destroy 3 Valtharian vessels, maybe the aliens could be defeated after all. "Did you hear that?" whispered one prisoner to another. "The humans destroyed their command ship." "Keep your voice down," replied his friend. "But yes, I heard it. Maybe we're not alone in this fight." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had given up hope began to plan rebellions. The Valtharians had seemed invincible, but the humans had proven they could be hurt. On Earth, Admiral Sullivan watched the battle recordings with tears in her eyes. The Defiance had saved humanity's home world, but at a terrible cost. The ship was gone, and most of its crew had died in the explosion. "Admiral, the remaining Valtharian ships are retreating," reported Lieutenant Commander Tony Blake. "They're leaving the solar system." Sullivan nodded. "Send rescue ships to find any survivors, and prepare a full report on what happened here. The galaxy needs to know if the aliens can be defeated." The news of the battle spread quickly through human space. Captain Hayes became a hero, a man who had saved Earth with one desperate attack. But Hayes himself was not interested in fame or glory. As soon as he recovered from his injuries, he had only one goal: to find and free the people enslaved by the Valtharians. "I want a new ship," Hayes told Admiral Sullivan when he was released from the hospital. something fast and well-armed. "Ryan, you've done enough," Sullivan replied. "You saved Earth. You deserve to rest." "I can't rest while billions of people are still in alien prison camps," Hayes said firmly. "The Valfarians are retreating, but they still control dozens of worlds. Someone needs to help the prisoners." Sullivan understood. She gave Hayes command of a new cruiser called the USS Remembrance. It was smaller than the Defiance, but faster and equipped with the latest rescue equipment. Many of Hayes' surviving crew members volunteered to serve with him again. Alex Turner became his first officer. Once more, Danny Park took charge of weapons. Maria Santos rebuilt the engineering department. They all wanted to finish what they had started. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Valfarian Empire was falling apart. Without their supreme commander and their flagship, the alien forces could not work together effectively. Local commanders began fighting each other for control. On Kepler 442b, the human prisoners launched a revolt. They overwhelmed their guards and captured several alien facilities. Within a week, they had freed half the planet's survivors. "We heard your message," the rebel leader told Hayes when he arrived with the Remembrance. "It gave us the courage to fight back." Similar uprisings were happening on dozens of worlds. The Zephyrians, a peaceful species that had been enslaved for 2 years, drove the aliens from their home system. The Kalari, who had lost 3 colonies, formed a resistance movement that struck at alien supply lines. 6 months after the battle at Earth, representatives from 50 different species met at a space station in neutral territory. They called themselves the Galactic Liberation Council, and their goal was simple: to drive the Valfarians from every world they had conquered. Admiral Sullivan was chosen to lead the council. She stood before the assembled delegates, looking out at dozens of different alien faces united by a common cause. "6 months ago, we all thought the Valfarians were unstoppable," she said. "They had better weapons, stronger ships, and seemed to win every battle. But one small human ship proved that even the mightiest enemy has weaknesses." She pressed a button, and Oracle's final transmission played on screens throughout the meeting hall. The delegates watched in silence as the Defiance rammed the alien flagship, creating an explosion that changed the course of galactic history. "The crew of the Defiance showed us that courage matters more than superior weapons," Sullivan continued. "They showed us that sometimes one person or one ship can make all the difference." The council voted to create a combined fleet to hunt down the remaining Valfarian forces. Ships from dozens of worlds would work together to free the enslaved populations and drive the aliens back to their home territory. Captain Hayes and the Remembrance played a key role in these liberation missions. They rescued millions of prisoners from dozens of worlds. Each time they freed a planet, Hayes would think about the people who had died at Kepler 442b and feel that their sacrifice had meaning. 2 years after the battle at Earth, the last Valfarian stronghold fell to the Liberation Fleet. The alien empire that had once controlled half the galaxy was reduced to a few scattered ships hiding in deep space. Hayes stood on the bridge of the Remembrance as they approached Kepler 442b for the final liberation mission. The planet still showed scars from the alien attack, but cities were being rebuilt and forests were growing back. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," Alex Turner reported. "Put it through," Hayes said. The face of Jake Morrison appeared on the screen. The old merchant captain had survived the war and was now helping to coordinate the planet's reconstruction. "Captain Hayes," Morrison said with a smile, "I wanted to thank you personally. If you hadn't made that crazy attack on the alien fleet, none of us would be here today." "You don't need to thank me," Hayes replied. "We all did what we had to do." "Maybe," Morrison said, "but you did it first. You showed the rest of us that the aliens could be beaten." After the transmission ended, Hayes walked to the observation deck and looked down at Kepler 442b. The planet was healing, just like the rest of the galaxy. New cities were rising from the ruins of the old ones. Children who had been born in slave camps were now free to play and learn and dream about the future. Maria Santos joined him at the window. "Hard to believe it's over," she said. "It's not over," Hayes replied. "It's just beginning. The galaxy is free now, but we have to make sure it stays that way." Hayes was right. The defeat of the Valfarians had created a new era of cooperation between species. The Galactic Liberation Council became a permanent organization, working to prevent future wars and protect smaller worlds from aggression. But most importantly, the galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Every school child on every world learned about the USS Defiance and its crew. They learned that courage could overcome superior technology, that sacrifice could save billions of lives, and that sometimes the smallest actions could have the biggest consequences. The story of the lonely human warship that entered orbit around an alien fleet became legend. Children would play games pretending to be Captain Hayes and his crew. Poets wrote songs about their sacrifice. Historians studied their tactics and tried to understand how one ship had changed the fate of the galaxy. Years later, when Hayes was old and gray, a young reporter asked him what he thought about being a hero. "I'm not a hero," Hayes said quietly. "I'm just someone who did his job when it mattered. The real heroes are the people who died on ships like the Defiance, fighting for something bigger than themselves." He paused and looked out at the stars. "The galaxy is a big place, full of dangers we can't imagine. But as long as there are people willing to stand up and fight for what's right, we'll be okay." The USS Defiance was gone, destroyed in a flash of light above Earth. But its legacy lived on in every free world, every liberated people, and every person who are